Safety and Development Committee meeting to order. All members are present, with the exception of Alderman Weigel, who is excused. Actually, I think he's going to be a little bit late, that's all.
Okay.
First order of business is approval of the minutes of the February 10th, 2021 meeting.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item D2, consideration to amend the prohibited uses noted within the 6 Points redevelopment plan. Steve, you
Thank
going
you.
to take it, or Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the second item on our agenda tonight is the proposed requested amendment to the 2000 6 Points redevelopment neighborhood plan. And what this did back in 2000 was declare a redevelopment area for a better part of probably about 16 to 20 acres of land, bounded between basically 60th Street west to roughly about 68th Street, north Greenfield Avenue, south down to about Mitchell Street. I think the map's on the next page, but you'll see in some of the pictures here, you know, if you look at the 2000 vintage cover page of the redevelopment plan, you can see the transformation that's taken place over time. And then these pictures here on the lower right were about 2006, right about the time when the redevelopment plan was in place, of course, and we had started to work with Helmut Tolt on his Tolt 6 Points apartments, clearing the path for future things to come, high-density residential apartments, mixed-use neighborhoods, and the west here is pictured on the very upper right portion. That's one of our newest apartment developments in the city, which is leased up well ahead of schedule. So there's been a lot of transformation over the years and more to come. The next slide just shows the old, actually just an old picture of pressed steel tank there from National Avenue.
And their landscaping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was more intrigued by the station wagon, but
Is that like a Delta 88 station wagon maybe? I don't know.
I remember riding in the back of those as
It doesn't have
kids.
wood grain. I'm kind of surprised there's no wood grain on it, but yeah. Anyway, the next slide is this is the map, the boundary map of the area. So it goes up to a little bit, almost 68th Street on the west, but the spur track is pretty much the western edge, and then 60th Street being the easternmost point, and then approaches a little bit north of Greenfield Avenue, but then pretty much follows National Avenue in point of, you know, some properties south of National Avenue, including our farmers market and so on. One of the properties we're going to be talking about tonight is the former Motor Castings property called Castech. It's been vacant for a number of years right now, I think several years. It's changed ownership. Motor Castings sold the property in 2019 to a property by the name of TNT Robinette. It's a half-acre parcel. It's located at basically just west of 63rd and National, so almost in the corner of 64th and National right there. So that's the location. And the next slide, this is the actual property itself. We have an interested party interested in purchasing the property. It is Zone C3, community commercial. Scott's Automotive is an existing West Dallas business on 113th and Rogers, and they're very interested in purchasing this building and relocating their business here. They're a growing business. They've run out of space at their shop here up on 113th and Rogers. They occupy the southern portion of that 113th and Rogers site, and then there's other tenants north of there. So they've outgrown that. They need more space. So they've located this spot here. They feel it's great for their business. The thing is, though, with this 6 Points redevelopment plan that was established in 2000, there are certain prohibited uses that are listed. And the reason is that, you know, the reason we've created that is it's almost like an overlay to the zoning, where back in 2000 and earlier days, when pressed steel tank was, you know, on its last leg, and there are a lot of properties in that boundary map I just showed you. Pretty much all of that area was considered blighted by standards, and so one of the reasons why we created a list of preferred and prohibited uses was to help sort of promote and control and catalyze the area around a common theme. And that's starting to develop today. I mean, it started back in the earlier 2000s, and it continues today, and we still have a lot more work to go. But so the whole idea was to foster redevelopment activities, included within a project area that are consistent with the uses of the plan. And so there were certain permitted uses and prohibited uses in the plan. The next slide just shows On the right are the, kind of the just general preferred uses, multifamily uses, market rate rental units, mixed-use structures, high-quality, commercial multifamily, office, business, professional, medical, government, and retail. Prohibited uses, some of the things we were most concerned about not happening in this area were, fast food restaurants, gas service stations, new and used car sales, adult video, laundromat, gun stores, ranges, tobacco stores, resale shops, check cashing, automotive repairs, automotive convenience stores, and tattoo and body piercing. So that's the laundry list. So for those things to happen, those types of prohibited uses to happen within this area, such as Scott's Automotive being a vehicle repair shop, they would need to, the council would need to strike, the preferred, the prohibited use of automobile repairs and possibly automobile sales, because I believe Scott's does actually sell vehicles from within their building. So it is perhaps something that would need to be considered as part of this redevelopment plan, an amendment to this redevelopment plan before council, if council so chooses. So, Tony, this is the next slide, or just, in terms of adaptive reuse, West Allis is no stranger to it. We've got numerous examples. I mean, it's just a short list of adaptive reuse projects in the city around this general area of National Avenue. But, you've got the old Allis-Chalmers building, for example. It's just probably one of our biggest examples where we've, over the years, adaptively recreated a whole new environment over there, of office and entertainment, retail services within that overall campus of which was once Allis-Chalmers. Includes also blast cleaning, some advanced manufacturing types of uses. And then also, the Reunion Restaurant, an old Allis-Chalmers employment office that's now going to become a restaurant. West Allian Brewing, an old shop building converted to a brew company. Oak Brewing, within the old tool and die shop, is becoming a brewery. And there's a future restaurant proposed, which will be coming before Planning Commission of the council to come, just kitty corner from the Paradise Theater. There's the old West Allis State Bank building. That's a future adaptive reuse of a restaurant of sorts. And then the old Paradise Theater has, become a church, and that's, so there's been a lot of that type of change. So we see that similar type of theme that could certainly happen within this Castech property on 6325 National. So it's no different from anything else that's happened within the area. While certainly we value Scott's Automotive being a active and viable business within our city, planning is just a little concerned about removing that automotive, repair from the prohibited use list. We just feel that now might not be the perfect time to do that. I feel like we're on a roll. Things are changing. That building could serve a higher and better use, which is evidenced with the things that are happening within that area. So that pretty much concludes my presentation. There's a few extra slides here that just show some of the existing things happening within the area. So the Perfect Screw Tool and Die Shop at 6749 National Avenue is going to be converted to the Oak Brewery. And you can see kind of a bird's eye perspective down below with our farmers market there on the left, and then future development site. Tony, just click one more time. I think there's within that large vacant area in the middle between the spur tracks and the farmers market, this is the Mandel proposal for phase 2 of what they want to start, which includes more apartments, coffee house, roastery, some entertainment and restaurants and the like. So we see a lot of this continuing, and we just feel that Castech property has life in it. It certainly could be for auto repair if the council so chooses to change our prohibited uses, but we feel that if properly marketed and maybe working with the new owner, I think we can maybe also take a look at some other options for council to consider as well.
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Vitale.
Yeah, I would like to begin first. We talk about brewing, retailing, but the fact is, if we talk about proximity between what we're talking about on 68 and National, and we're talking about 63rd and National, the way I do feel for the future, I mean, we can just, I know what's changed back in 10 years ago, where we did some modifications of zoning changes. But the fact stands where I always felt strong about it. If you have a reliable buyer, and with motor casting, all those years that I'm a machine shop there never was any outside or neighborly complaints in anywhere at all. So there are people working in here, there were jobs. So with this newcomer, this Scott Otter Repair, and he sells the indoors just as well, I feel, I mean, he's got 7 people working for him right now. Probably he's going to adding about a couple more people. He's buying the building, he's not leasing it. If they were leasing it, I had a different approach. But they buy the building, they invest money in our community. They create jobs, they have services. You know, I understand, you know, we don't really care anymore about auto repairs on and on, because for reason. But this would be a good development for that corner, really. I mean, I don't see any really faults for us to just change that portion, you know. I mean, to me, it's very superb on my part, because I feel they buy the building. It's not a lease structures. I mean, they put a cash in there, they buy it, that's their building. So it makes a big difference. So everything else, I hope with our zoning changes and what is coming through, in the future, everything works well. But this one, again, I repeat, and I want to make sure that it's clear. They buy the building, and that's where the difference is. And actually, they're going to take care of the landscaping. They invest money. They're local people, you know. I mean, they live in West Dallas, and that's why I feel strong about it. You have people that they try to improve their operations, you know. They have a little more space, you know, and that's why I look at it. That's why I'm in favor, really. If you have to make a change just in a particular area there.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Alderwoman Keene.
2 questions. One is, if we lift this on the repairs and potential use sales, what then is stopping it from any other businesses applying smack dab in the middle of somewhere and us being able to turn them down without it being, you know, bias or whatnot? You know, you have one here that we allowed, so now someone goes to buy this building here that, what, is there any?
It does potentially open up the door for that happening if you change the prohibited uses and if you take away some of the prohibited uses that are in there now. It could open the door for other vehicle repair shops to come in and find another location, you know, and aggressively, you know, pursue it.
Because it's open now,
It's
so
open, right,
the
yeah.
floodgates are open. Just my thought process on it, I mean, again, to kind of mirror that, where then do we not make an exception for cash store loans that want to buy a building, or for any of the other items listed to buy the building? So I think they were set as prohibited uses for a reason, and from a consistency standpoint, I get that he's a West Dallas business owner, so like my heart's torn for him, and good business, and, you know, obviously investing in our community, but I also, from a consistency standpoint, I kind of feel they're set for a reason and we let it be. Otherwise, we could be back here all the time with another exception, then.
I remember when we did this years ago, it was actually about 20 years ago that we did this, and we had a lot of deteriorated properties in that neighborhood, and we made it a goal to fix up the neighborhood, and we had a vision for the neighborhood, and you're seeing that vision come to fruition now with the newer apartment buildings. There's some condos, apartments on Greenfield Avenue too, a little further to the east. The Mandel property across the street from the west is going to be redeveloped. Brewery, the 6711 property there is the old white Kearney and Trecker
Yeah.
former building. It is, there's people that are looking to redevelop that. It's in its early stages. They're still getting their financing and everything together to redevelop that. And I think the vision, and quite frankly, that Motor Castings building is a very nice looking building. I mean, it is not a piece of junk. It's substantial, it's maintained nicely, it's screened nicely, the parking lot looks good, everything is maintained now. Motor Castings has done a really nice job of maintaining the building, and, you know, it's been vacant for quite a while. And I'll be honest, that my initial reaction was to agree with Alderman Vitale's summation that, hey, this building has sat there empty for quite a while. Nobody's in it, and I don't like to see vacant buildings either. I like to see them occupied. But I think I'd like to give it a couple more years to see if perhaps the owners can sell it to someone that has a better vision for the neighborhood than an auto repair facility. There's, you know, I look at some of the newer restaurants around town. There's one out at the corners in Brookfield, and they built it like an old garage now. I mean, that's the whole concept. And you go downtown, some of the newer places, you know,
That
you have
industrial look.
yeah, the industrial look, the slide-up doors, the glass windows that open up. And I look at that building and I say, boy, that would be perfect for a nice restaurant. You get, you know, dining outside and all of that. I guess I'd like to see it stay the way it is and not change the uses at this point in time. If we get to a point where there's no developments interested in the vacant building, then I think I'd consider doing it. But I think with Mandel going to be starting construction hopefully this summer across the street from the west, it's going to spur more interest. We got to remember, this whole last year, there was no developments
Right.
in hospitality industry, absolutely nothing. And I can't blame them. I wouldn't have gone into business. Anybody that went into business last year has got to be crazy, you know. So I'd like to give that building a chance to find some tenant that can make it more vital to the neighborhood and fit in more with the neighborhood than an auto repair facility.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Vitale.
right now we have, per se, east of that, not too far, probably a couple hundred feet, we have Antigua, you know, we have some of the servers of restaurants or taverns within close range, really, we do, you know. So my question is, you know, why we should wait a few more years when we have a potential buyer for that location? To me, I mean, we don't do anything really for the for any business they think about West Dallas. I mean, we push them away from doing business in West Dallas, basically, by doing this. And I understand that we don't want any junker. I mean, in the future, I mean, it could be a changes, but we can always apply regulations, you know, I mean, if the place is causing disturbance, it causes problem on the outside, not maintaining the parking lot, we can always deny the application for that business to exist. We can always do that. It's not the questions, we cannot really do nothing about it. We have rules and regulations in place at this time. We do, about zoning, you know. But to me, when we have somebody that is coming forward to do business there in West Dallas at the present time, but they found maybe a better location, a good spot, a good structures. I mean, I don't see why we should turn our back and let them sit there for another couple of years when that building has been sit there for a long time, it's been vacant. So I mean, that's my strong feeling about it. Like I said, I mean, in the area, there's no places right now that we can speak of that anybody can put any garage and any car service. A National Greenfield within that range there, there's nothing available that people could do that. No, really.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you.
I disagree totally with you, Alderman Vitale. Number one, there is a car repair place on 68th Street and National.
Yeah,
Expert Auto.
Yeah.
So it's just a few blocks away, so it is in the area, and it's a major auto repair facility.
So,
And I really take exception to your comment about we're not helping businesses, because we help businesses in this community all the time. Our development department has all sorts of programs and does outreach to assist businesses when they're locating. This is not a business that's permitted in this area. We don't own the building, so it's not like we're selling it. It's a private development, and you know, we don't have to change our rules for somebody. These are our rules. Everybody knows it. It's been that way for 20 years. And it's for the betterment of the first district, of that neighborhood. I know, Alderman Vitale, you've been an alderman in the first district for a long time, and I know you've had the complaints about some of the auto repair facilities in your.
well, on
in your-
Burnham Street, the guy is gone. So that's what I'm talking about. If there is a pre-existing auto repair, and they don't follow through with our zoning ordinance, a lot of them, I mean, after a while, they got no choices to shut down.
We have
We
one.
done that on Burnham Street, I did.
We have
Next to
one in our
the
district on
Speedway.
95th and National.
You know,
It looks beautiful from the outside, but all of a sudden, what happens? He gets so much business, there's cars parked all over the street all the time, that it no longer looks really nice like it did in the beginning, because his business is so good that there's cars there all the time, and it doesn't look good anymore. They're all over the street, and they park up the block for the neighbors. So I know, and you know, the problems that are associated with some of the auto repair shops. And I'm not saying that this place would be any different, but there's nothing preventing them, once they buy the place, to say, we're going to go out of business, we're going to sell this, we're going to move, we're going to do this or that, or we're going to change our operation, and we don't want this building anymore. So they sell it to someone that isn't as good an operator as they are. So, you know, once you make this change, the change is there forever.
well,
And, you know, it isn't just for this one person, and you're also opening up that whole neighborhood to auto repair shops then, because, you know, if there's a building that they can go into, we're not gonna be able to deny them, because now it's gonna be a permitted use.
Mr. Chair, you mentioned the auto shop repair on 68th and National. How the building is maintained since we have a new owner? I mean, it looks beautiful on the outside.
I'm not complaining about it.
Yeah, so we never got
I'm just
any
saying there's one
complaints.
in the area.
We never got any complaints, you know, so that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I'm not complaining about it at all. You made the
I mean-
comment that there weren't any auto places in the area, and there
But
is
in
one.
that particular area, because I've been looking at, you know, on Greenfield, there's not one place where somebody can build or put an auto shop. There's no places there, really. There's a small dealer's lot on 61st and Greenfield there, just a little, it's been there for 100 years. So, I mean, but there is other places where anybody can just walk in and apply for auto repair shop. You know, to me, if the wishes is for the council to stay as it is, you know, 20 years, and maybe the building could stay vacant for another 10 years, well, then there should be. You know, but to me, when we have an interested buyer of a building, and they have 7 jobs right now, and they could have a few additional jobs, so 9 or 10 employees. To me, I mean, and they're willing to spend money on the outside to make it beautify the corner, you know, the building, you know. I mean, let's be realistic, you know. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm done.
First of all, let me note that Alderman Weigel is now present at the meeting.
Sorry, I had this at 7 o'clock on my calendar, I guess.
Alderman Haas.
Yeah, I think we should follow the recommendation of our staff. Our staff are the professional planners, they know best, and we have experience already where if we hold out, that something better can come along. An example that comes to mind quickly is the new dental clinic that's being built at, what is that, 72nd or 71st in the
Yeah,
National?
good point.
Thank you. Yeah, we held out. It was vacant for a longer time, and there's a better use has come in there. So yeah, I'm in favor of not amending the redevelopment plan.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Tenorio.
I'll add my 2 cents too. Pretty similar reaction I think there's a lot of momentum and a lot of interest in this area. So my preference would be to keep the prohibitive list the same as it is.
Any other comments by the council? There's nothing to act on, it's just, I think staff has their direction.
Thank you.
Item 3 on the agenda is a resolution to approve a development agreement by and between West Dallas Brewing Property LLC and Community Development Authority for the sale of land and the establishment of a brewery at 674951 West National, 67 Star West National, and 67 Star West Mitchell. Mr. Slosh.
Members of the committee, just outlining the development agreement here that we have between the CDA and Oak Brewery. It's West Dallas Brewing property, but they also go by Oak Brewing Company. There are 3 business partners that are looking to buy 3 parcels along National Avenue. It's a .47 lot, which would, in the plan, be the volleyball courts. It's an empty, bare lot today, and I'll show you that here in a second. And there will be an outdoor entertainment venue with fire pits, bags, volleyball, outdoor beer garden, large TVs, etc. And then a 10,000 square foot brewery within the former Perfect Screw operating facility that was along National Avenue. And then part of the Milwaukee Ductile acquisition from the CDA, we received a part of 67, or all of 67 Star West Mitchell. And in this particular case, we would be selling the southern portion, pretty much along this spur line here, south of there, for additional parking to square this parcel off. There are 3 business partners. I know they've been before the Common Council before, John Onopa, Kyle, and Adam. The overall project's around $3.3 million. They've received approval or private financing from Citizens Bank. The appraisal was 1.2, almost 1.3 million, and the purchase price for the site is $500,000. Here are the parcels, a little clearer view of the parcels that the CDA actually owns this entire block. One of the unique things within the development agreement is that we have an easement agreement that allows the brewery to have a shared driveway between 6771 and this development. So they would cross over, and this will be the corridor for access to the site, instead of having 2 driveways next to each other along National Avenue. In the development agreement, of course, it is that they have to provide bank financing. They are providing close to over $500,000 in equity. Their goal is to construct a brewery and entertainment venue. There's a shared parking agreement. The idea here is that between the venues that are future plans, that people could maybe park, have a beer here, maybe walk over to this facility, so that we have shared parking between the 2 complexes. So kind of providing that neighborhood feel for residents, not only to walk over, park here, maybe walk over to the farmer's market, create a destination. The easement also requires shared maintenance and construction of the driveway access, etc. Again, this kind of provides a clear image of the landscaping and things that will be around the building. So when it comes to city participation in the structure of the deal, so we have a $500,000 purchase price, and we are providing a $102,000 credit off that purchase price to address brownfield soil issues on the site. There's a historic industrial soil conditions at the site that require capping for the DNR requirements. Capping is either you have to remove so many feet of soil and put clean fill in above the contaminated soil, and then that soil you removed has to go to a landfill. Unfortunately, in this case, you can't bury it on the site. We did work with them to reduce this. The original estimate was around over $160,000. We advised them to keep maybe the volleyball courts above ground instead of digging the volleyball courts into the ground, so that we won't have to excavate those soils. So that provided some cost savings to the project. So there's $300,000 in financing. The Common Council has taken up already the $100,000 TIF loan and the $50,000 CDBG loan. Part of the acquisition, there's a note to the CDA for $150,000, on which they will pay 3.25% over 25 years. The amortization matches the SBA financing that's being received by the brewery. The forgivable loan is the CDBG loan for that. That's a program we have along the National Avenue corridor to attract niche businesses. So that's to help buy equipment and create jobs in this area. This project came from a broker, so we agreed to pay the commission, and we're working to get the closure from the DNR. One of the other costs is more of an infrastructure site development condition, is that the utility lines currently run along the front facade of the brewery, and they go on utility poles. So to help clean up the site, we want to bury that main line, power line, which is around $127,000 to do that. And the actual power feed that feeds 6771 is above ground, and we'd have to place that underground if we eliminate the poles. So there's around $60,000 kind of separate from this deal that will have to be addressed.
Separate from the 127?
Yes. So this is the outline of the soil conditions. It's in the development agreement that is provided, just outlining where, we dig out pavement to put in landscaping, then you have to dig that soil out. And these are the incremental costs, because they would have had to do something to meet the conditions of the plan commission. So when I outline the utilities, this pink line here is the current power feed to the Perfect Screw building and then to the 6771. And there's utility poles, as you can see, in this area. We would like to remove these and then have that power line be placed underground like this. This is Mitchell on this side, National on this side, and this would be the power feed to 6771. Kind of like down that driveway area that we talked about earlier. Jason Kazmarek, our city finance director, did review the TIF. The TIF will be within the statutory limit. I know there's some TIF financing here that we agreed to do, so it does not have an impact to the TIF because, well, UHS is under construction currently. That's a $40 million development. In our TIF plan, you can see down here, our projected TIF value was 11 million. So we're in terms of projected value, double than what we originally had in the plan. So, and most of the financing that we have here is actually repaid, other than the block grant money. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, on the development agreement. I gladly answer any questions you may have.
I might note that the CDA approved it at their meeting last
Correct.
night. Any problems or questions, or?
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 is an overview of the Wasalis Residential Market Analysis Strategy Planning Guidelines Report.
We don't necessarily have a slide on this, but I wanted to just inform the council, and I informed the CDA last night. I emailed on Monday. My intent was to email on Monday everybody a copy of the market study out. The Common Council received it. The CDA did not. That was corrected this morning. I apologize for that. But the market study is available for your review, and if you after you review it, you have questions, we can have a future presentation by Tracy Cross. That was the consultant that prepared the report, or our staff can gladly respond to your question. But 3 things to note within the market report. It shows a strong market for additional multifamily development within our city at lease rates that are comparable to the West and Ogden. And one thing to note with that is that the quality of construction in this demand should be similar to the West or the Ogden. Amenity-rich type of the project, walkable, bikeable neighborhood, those types of things, maybe a dog walking station, etc. They also note in the report that there's a demand for single type of family type of units, not the home per se, but more of an urban walk-up townhomes type of style or condo. Multi,
Like those
maybe 2-story
brownstones,
walk-up, maybe a brownstone kind of more urban approach. There are some very interesting architectural examples within the report to take a look at. That is something that he actually, the consultant recommended. Maybe there's some neighborhoods in Chicago that have built these that we might want to visit. It might be a new
Field trip.
yes, a new kind of concept to approach here in our city, and it provides an ownership. And it's similar to the rent structures that some of the new developments have. So that's one thing to note. There is, it says that the senior housing demand has been met, but I think that's, could evolve. But it seems that we are positioned well to attract additional investment here in our city, and it'll help, the report will provide a tool as we underwrite future proposals here that are not only we've received, but are forthcoming. Do you have any questions at this point, if you had an opportunity to look at the report?
This is good news for us. Yeah.
Exactly.
One last thing, in the email, I said there's a chance for ownership as single family. The market price for those type of units were 350 or higher. So, I mean, that's something to note within that's,
Wowza.
that the market is strong, that's the
Caesar's
kind of
on got a
quality, it'd be
deal.
more professional type of, it would attract a different social, I guess, demographic in terms of the salary and to be able to afford such a type of a unit like that, so.
For sure.
Which is not something we currently have available in our city, so.
Well, I think you'd be surprised at how many $300,000 homes we have in the city now.
Yeah, I know the
Market has changed dramatically.
I remember a few years ago,
Homes that were 150, 170,000 are now 225, 250.
I remember an average sale price between 150 and 160, and I used to watch that in the journal, and I think that's
It's way out
that's
of
probably
whack now.
decades behind now,
Yeah,
so.
way behind. So
Or the
300
market's evolved.
350,000 doesn't surprise me, and that is really entry level now for a lot of young people.
Okay.
I know my grandson just bought a home for 400,000, a little ways, and it's, not any problems.
Wow, my first house was 99,000.
And I know,
People's cars were more than my first home.
my first one was 39,000. It's all relative. And I wouldn't want to buy it today.
No.
It is all relative, and we,
Tom, I'm sure it doesn't work for the, restaurants, I mean, I'm sure to make that kind of a purchase of a house, I'm sure he's got a good job,
Yeah.
Doesn't work for a restaurant.
No. No, he's in IT.
and I did bring 2 hard copies of the report along if anybody needed. I have hard copies to support Wisconsin's paper industry, so.
Mr. Chair,
Alderman Weigel.
I just would like to mention, I like the suggestion of more diversity in our stock. It's not just more of the same old, same old.
Yeah.
It's hitting on the high points of the things that have been successful. I like that row house concept.
I do too.
I think it might seem different to a lot of people here, as, us die-hard Milwaukeeans. It's not the kind of thing you see a lot of here, but I'm glad to see that's a suggestion of what we should look at.
You see it in a lot of other areas.
Yes,
so-
when you travel, you see that.
Especially East Coast.
Yes, you see that a lot of places. Yeah.
I was recently on a spring break trip in Franklin, Tennessee, and there was a development called Berry Farms, and it said they were building 1,500 new residences. Within that context, it looks like the southern 2-story home, but they're next to each other, and it's very short front yards, very quaint. I always say it looks kind of like a Hollywood set, but that's kind of there's a demand for that. So.
An alley too, right, Patrick? Or
I don't recall an alley.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I mean,
So-
the other places that are putting alleys in,
Right.
the alleys are back.
Right.
Yeah.
Disney's Celebration, Florida is a perfect example of that.
Right, so,
Motor Castings property,
correct.
the ideal place for row houses.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 5, discussion relative to complete streets and overview of the draft policy.
Mr. Chairman, Tony Giron, our planner, is going to present this one. And just want to let everybody know that this is a policy which I think is somewhat in practice already, I think, to date. But we just want to get it official, before the Common Council of the policy and adopted. It's part of one of our, I guess, goals of our development, planning and zoning office, to develop a complete streets policy and then, more or less implement it as part of the typical capital improvement schedule. So, Tony?
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair, Committee. Thanks for having me. So today I'm just going to present to you on the complete streets concept, and then we'll get into the policy a little bit later. So complete streets are streets for everyone, no matter who they are or how they travel. So these streets are for people biking, including people driving and taking the bus, and especially for people walking. So whether you're crossing on foot or on wheels, We want to make our streets safer, more comfortable, and more convenient. For too long, we've been designing our roadways with the automobile as a priority and not so much ignoring our more vulnerable users, but maybe not prioritizing them. And our streets have become, incomplete streets, I should say, are especially unsafe for people of color, people in low-income communities, older adults and children. There's a report that comes out annually called Dangerous by Design that focuses on this. And it's amazing how year after year in cities that don't have complete streets policies, there are more vulnerable users being hit on the street, you know, just crossing the street. So pedestrians getting hit by automobiles. Our streets are inadequate, so some streets have no sidewalks or are too dangerous to cross on foot. I know we have some of those streets here in West Dallas. Some of these streets are unsafe for people on bicycles, and I know this image is not really relevant to West Dallas. We don't have traffic jams like that, but it does, the way we've designed our streets do direct more traffic on arterials, you know, on Highway 100. I'm just picturing that arterial and trying to cross that at some of the intersections is just very daunting to some of our more vulnerable users. It can be uninviting for bus riders, inaccessible for people on wheels. And I know we've seen this in some places around town where there's just no room for people. And you have those desired paths where there should be a sidewalk. But we do know how to build correctly. This is an image of our very own National Avenue, which our engineering department just recently won an award for. Yet too many roads still turn out like this. This is not in West Dallas, but we do have similar roads. Or this, where sidewalk just kind of dead ends.
Vince's house.
Or this, another one without a sidewalk.
We don't need no sidewalk there. I mean, people
So
really walk in the park anyway, most of the time,
Yeah.
really. This,
the solution I bring to you all is the complete streets policies. Complete streets policies are essentially where whenever there's a new road construction project, we should be considering the more vulnerable users of the road in the construction of that project. And we have over 1,600 complete streets policies that have been adopted throughout the United States. In Wisconsin, most notably, the Milwaukee one was most recently passed, and then we have one in Franklin, Madison, Appleton. The one in Milwaukee was passed with the help of the Wisconsin Bicycle Federation. I used to work there and helped actually put that policy together. And we have an example there where it's been around for a couple of years, and it's been going pretty well, and they have a few really great projects thanks to that policy. Something that I just found out today, actually, is that there's a few Congress members and senators that are going to be introducing the Complete Streets Act, which will have be appropriating federal funds. 5% of the federal highway funds will be appropriated for complete streets projects, and that will require all states to create a program to provide technical assistance and award this funding for communities to build complete streets projects. And this act will also have municipalities adopting complete streets policies and to be able to earn that funding. So we could be ahead of the game here with getting this policy passed. So talking about the policy now, it's a high-level policy direction. It'll help change the everyday decision-making processes, and it's really an incremental approach. This isn't we're going to change all of our streets immediately as soon as we pass this policy. And then we hope to have long-term results from this. Complete Streets is not a one special street project, so it's not just like a National Avenue on Lincoln Avenue or on Beloit, for example.
I was gonna mention that, I believe eventually that's what we should do, all in Maine. First, I think this should be done, really. Because I noticed from Lincoln Avenue now to all the way to the Milwaukee, Morgan, all the way down to Greenfield. I mean, the way they done it, I believe they did a great job. And then we did paint the lines to calm the traffic down to one lane, you know. We should really make a lot of sense, you know, really. I'm 400%. I think all the main drags, I think it should be one of the prioritized in the future, really. They should be to calm the traffic down, because if you go on from Cleveland south to Oklahoma, everybody in front of their house, they gotta slow down. You know, I mean, and people, I believe they do slow down now more, you know, because, you know, with the curb went out, I think with one lane, I think it really helps the situation. So it's a good, valid.
And this policy would help us implement our existing bicycle and pedestrian plan,
Yes.
where we have a lot of our arterials called out for more improvements like bike lanes and
Yes.
and
yes.
crosswalks, but we also want to pay attention to our more residential streets. Just as an aside, we're also working on the neighborhood greenways plan in collaboration with UWM urban planning students, and they'll be coming out with that at the end of this semester, so look out for that. But just to continue, that Complete Streets is also not an immediate retrofit, and it isn't meant to solve all these major issues like land use, environmental concerns, and transportation demand management. However, it is a tool that will help us address those. The West Dallas Complete Streets policy, as it's written, well, it's really formalizing a process that we already do, as Steve mentioned. We already meet with engineering twice a year and go through all of the projects from their inception to their 30% progress. And what's really great to note about West Dallas, unlike other communities, we're lucky enough to have the support from our DPW director and city engineer. So like I mentioned, the internal committee would be meeting twice per year, which is something we already do. And the improvements can be modest in size and low cost. So those images just below are what we call paint and post projects. So you have essentially a curb bump out without any of the infrastructure of a curb bump out like cement and irrigation.
Yeah, where is that, Tony?
This is on Fratney Street in the River West neighborhood of Milwaukee.
Okay, I've seen those all over Chicago. Not all over, that's an exaggeration. On some streets in Chicago. I didn't know we had those in Milwaukee, so.
Yeah, it's become really popular in Chicago over the past 10 years. I used to work for their DOT and their bike program, and we used to install lots of pedlets and bike corrals, and especially these. And in fact, in Chicago, in some places, they would use these paint and post projects just to test out if they could build something more substantial down the line. Also, in the West Dallas Complete Streets policy, one of the goals is to adopt a design guide and create a handbook so that we can refer to it whenever we look at each individual project. It's also, the policy is also asking for 2 hours of professional development per year for staff that are working on Complete Streets. And we want to make an annual report publicly available to make sure that people know can track our progress on Complete Streets. And we also have an emphasis on public engagement. We're going to come out with a public engagement plan to make sure that the public can weigh in on this. The policy does have exceptions. So if you look at it's one of the last sentences on the policy itself. Whenever certain users are prohibited from a facility, then the Complete Streets policy would not apply. So for example, there's no bicycling on highways. So if we're going to redo the highway, then we're not going to obviously include or consider our more vulnerable users because nobody's really crossing the highway. And then number two.
By highway, do you mean like Highway 100?
No, I
Or
mean like
the interstate?
an interstate.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Because, you know,
Yeah, a limited access
you
highway.
say the highway in West Dallas,
I know,
that sounds
yeah,
like highway.
yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. So going on to number two, the cost to include accommodations is excessive or disproportionate to the need of or probable use. So this can be subjective. If we deem that building, for example, a bridge over Highway 100 is too expensive, then we might not do it. And then number 3, the project is considered an emergency repair or routine maintenance and will not change the geometry or operations of the street. If something is damaged and it needs an immediate repair, then we might not consider it to be a candidate for a complete streets project. And that concludes my presentation. So,
Yeah, I like, Mr. Chair, I like that. Alderman Mario Wyckoff, we have highways in West Dallas. National Highway, that's a state highway. Greenfield, it's a state highway. So we have a state highways here, West Dallas, so he's
In
right.
Illinois, they call those routes,
Route,
not a
okay.
highway. In Wisconsin, that's a highway.
I know.
Mr.
Route
Chair?
or route. Yeah.
Alderman Weigel.
I just want to make a couple points. I'm in full support of this. And just as a reminder, we're all pedestrians. No matter how often you drive your car or you drive, there's a time you get out of your car and walk. And, whether it's from the parking lot in Pickens Haven to the door and out, you're a pedestrian then. And if we can get whatever facilities to be safer for pedestrians at all times, it gets in people's heads. We were just talking about this housing study, and walkability is a huge thing for people when they look, my wife and I are considering where we're going to retire, and we consider we're spoiled here because where I live right now, right here on Greenfield Avenue, we have an 82 walk score, which is very, very good, which means I can walk to the library, my kids can walk to school, I can walk to the post office, the pizza joint, the coffee shop, the grocery store, all that kind of stuff. So and the easier you make it for people to walk, the more they will walk.
Agreed.
And that's just, to me, that's a no-brainer. Also a reminder, a lot of these improvements, these de facto designs, make it easier for people with lower ability levels, whether you're using a cane or a walker or a wheelchair. And quite honestly, I think we're all going to end up there. I think we're all going to spend a part of our life not walking as quickly as we do today, and if the easier we can make it for everybody to get around, the more they will. And then one more thing I wanted to add, when we redid 73rd Street, it's been 2 years already. I don't know, COVID's messing up my calendar. There was a lot of pushback from the neighbors when 73rd from Greenfield to National was rebuilt, and it was narrowed.
It was narrowed.
Our staff narrowed it, and a lot of neighbors were very concerned. And I'll be honest with you, not a one of them has come and said, see, I told you it was going to be bad. Now, I've spoken to a couple people, and they're a little reluctant to admit that they were wrong, because that's just human nature, But I think 73rd Street, we gained a little extra green space in front. The walk times for people across the street are less, and the vehicle speeds have dropped. And that's one of the key things. So, yeah, I'm in complete support of this. This is a good thing.
I think one of the things you mentioned was public engagement. How are you going to do that? Are you going to do that, I would hope it's going to happen before public hearings for the project, that when it's on the capital improvement docket for a year from now, that someone is already talking to residents and saying, hey, we're considering doing this in the next 5 years or whatever. Do you have any thoughts or ideas on how we should go about this, or any suggestions before we get in the planning stage, so that we've got some ideas? I know a lot of people, and Pete does an excellent job of showing options to people with bump outs and things, traffic calming features on roads. But it might be good to get more involvement, because typically the only ones that are involved are the ones that are here at the meeting, or if they happen to be watching on TV that night of the hearing. But then they don't have the opportunity to really feedback. So it would be nice to have some outreach.
Sure. No, I think that's a great idea. And, I think Tony and I, and, planning and zoning will definitely work with engineering, public works. And I know engineering in the past has had public information meetings, like open houses here at City Hall and so on.
Absolutely.
With different stations to come in. But that's a great opportunity to sort of broach this with neighborhoods as well. So, I mean, that's absolutely the direction we want to go with this. Yep.
Good.
Can we maybe get some out-of-the-box video thing to run on Channel 25? Or cut in some local scenes from something? I'm sure something exists already. What's a bump out, what's a road diet, what's why a bike lane? And if that could run on our cable station, you know, because we have a lot of reruns on our cable station. We have a lot of old World War II stuff shown.
Win it again.
We got plenty of bandwidth.
Oh, I wonder how it ends.
You know, like, just a little 3-minute video of things versus a whole show.
Yeah, it wouldn't have to be half an
You know,
hour.
like something that's on the website, here's our complete street policy, here's a little thing about walking and biking, and, it doesn't, yeah, it can be really quick.
That's a great idea. It fulfills the education piece. If this is engineering, that's education, and we also have enforcement going on all the time. And
Do we?
so, yeah, I think-
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
the committee's just being formed now, correct? Or there's already,
we have an informal committee that
Okay.
meets, but not an established complete streets committee.
So are you gonna come in with a resolution to establish this policy? And then just
Yeah.
name the people that you've got on your committee and then.
Right, yeah.
Yep.
And there's even a list of representatives that we would like to have on the committee.
Yeah, perfect.
There was, with tonight's agenda, I think one of the attachments on that agenda item was it was like a whereas statement, which would be adopted by resolution by the council. We're thinking May 4th, but, you
Yeah,
know. we can-
that's fine.
Mr. Chair?
Alderman Tenorio.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. Thank you for presenting this. I think for a long time, cities in the U.S. have been designed for cars, but especially looking at West Dallas now, like, moving forward, if we could design our city for people, whether they walk, bike, drive, or take public transit, I think this is a step in the right direction.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair? Yeah, just mention two things that haven't been mentioned yet. Our engineering department points to studies where with bike lanes, even if there isn't a bicyclist in the lane, if the lanes aren't used by bicyclists, that still slows traffic speeds of the vehicles just because of that narrowness. And secondly, we're seeing a problem, and it's only going to continue, of reckless driving throughout the metro area. And part of that key has been enforcement, but you've got Yahoo drivers that say, what are you going to do, take my license? Ha, I don't have one anyway. You know, joke's on you. You know?
Exactly.
And that's the truth.
Yeah, it
Folks
is.
that just don't care.
Right.
That
There's no
Yahoo that passes
consequences.
you on the right in the parking lane and does those kinds of things. Yes, this is some complete streets like bump outs and traffic calming features can be coupled with enforcement to try and combat those Yahoos.
Yeah,
Where are we on sidewalk requirements? I know lots of the west side doesn't have sidewalks. I know a previous alderman was against adding sidewalks in a lot of neighborhoods. I think a lot of our residents don't want them, maybe because they don't understand them. I've heard things like, well, there'll be strangers walking down in front of my house.
Yeah.
It's like, those aren't strangers, those are your neighbors.
Let me answer that. Can I answer that?
I'm just wondering.
You're right. I'm not, so, you're right. So my neighborhood, Orchard Hills, has a sidewalk on one side of the street. On the other side of the street, typically there is no sidewalk. I sit in my house in the evening at times, and I see people walking in the street on the side of the street where there is a sidewalk.
Oh, I see that.
What in the world is the matter with you? I want to get out there.
Not get off of my lawn, get off of my street.
Yeah, I just want to ask an honest question. And why are you stupid?
right.
My neighborhood has sidewalks all over except for one street behind me at 75th Street has partial sidewalks. It's like Vince's.
Yeah.
They go halfway and the rest of the block doesn't have it. But I see people walking in the street. Most people are on the sidewalk, but I invariably, once a week or so, I see somebody walking down the street like, where are you? We got
It's a
sidewalks
sidewalk
on
there.
both sides.
Yeah.
You know, no, I want to walk down the middle of the street.
Yes, yeah, I can
Must have
only
a compliant
surmise.
neighborhood. I never see that. Everyone's always on the sidewalk all
And to
night.
be honest with you, most of the time it's somebody elderly,
Yeah.
which you say, holy cow, you know, that is not the smartest thing to do.
Right. And yeah, so yeah, I can only speculate that these are folks that perhaps grew up without sidewalks and they're just accustomed to walking in
The Yahoo
street.
walkers.
They're Yahoos as well, yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
But anyhow, if in doing a street project in Orchard Hills, and we've done them all now, right, the issue of sidewalks, the residents are dead set against new sidewalks.
Right, because they don't want to have to shovel it?
Yes.
Same
That's
with
the
their
main thing.
rainbow,
They're-
and they don't want to pay for the repairs when it happens.
That's right, we're giving them a special assessment.
Obligation.
And they feel that special assessment's gonna be more with a sidewalk, and it's gonna take away from their front yard. I think it's just a natural resistance to change. So they're okay with the status quo, to keep the sidewalks where they are, but
It's-
not to.
I agree with
It
that.
has been that way since I've been on the council. And you're right, Alderman Weigel, there were certain aldermen out in the West End that, you know, the neighbors didn't want sidewalks, they were representing them, and they're saying no sidewalks.
Yes.
So Tony, how would that work? Let's just say, for instance, let's just pick Stratton Drive, for instance, in West Allis. No sidewalks, you know, it's just north of Oklahoma, south of Beloit Road. And let's just say Stratton Drive, 10 years from now, is up for reconstruction. You know, they're going to redo it curb to curb. What types of considerations would the Capital Improvements Committee take on, I guess, in considering, you know, with this policy in place? I mean, so what would they be evaluating? Right now, the curb to curb on Stratton Drive is, I'm going to guess here, maybe 30 feet, maybe a little over 30 feet wide.
Is safe, as much as we would love to have a safe place for people to walk everywhere, I also agree that people should have a say on how their streets are built. And if they want to maintain the status quo and keep their community a certain way, then that's why we have the public engagement piece built into this policy. Perfect.
And that's, you know, I think the correct
Agreed, they
way
might have
to
moved there
go
for a
about it.
reason that didn't have sidewalks.
It's your neighborhood, you decide what kind of neighborhood you
Yeah.
want. And, you know, the only thing I find hard is when I look at, like where Vince lives and the street behind me, where you have a sidewalk that goes halfway and then it stops in the middle of the block. That's not too smart. I mean, either have one or don't have one.
All right.
Let me, Mr. Chair, the fact
And
that.
I'm not blaming you.
No, no,
Vince.
no. No, what I
you
would
were
like
there.
to say, from 52nd and Kinnickinnick River Parkway, Rita Drive to my lot line that's Rita Drive, say.
Yeah.
So back
I know.
before my time, about 50-some years ago, some people who lived there, they wanna change the Kinnickinnick River Parkway dedicated to Rita Drive. The reasons, I have no idea for. At that time, those days, somebody must have had some pools, they had a big rope or whatever, you know? But they changed it to Rita Drive.
Yeah, I know.
It confuses a lot of people,
Sure,
you know?
I know.
And then where my house started, all the way to Fillmore on Kinnickinnick, well, there was a new subdivision. That's why
And that's why it doesn't have sidewalks.
That's why it doesn't have no sidewalk. And the fact stands that if you go on a parkway there, when people walking, a lot of them, they walk across the street. Many of them, really, people, they walk, and they walk right across the street. Occasionally, you see somebody walking on the street, you know, like on my side, but not that many at all, really. Many people, they utilize the park, you know?
Personally, I like it when people are walking up and down the street, down the sidewalk.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's activity in the neighborhood, that's what
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah.
You know, Last thing you want is a
Yeah.
quiet neighborhood where, you know,
Agreed.
Mr. Chair?
I'm gonna wanna go.
What if we made sidewalks the status quo, and then if the neighbors don't want them, they let us know? So the default situation is, we design for sidewalks.
I would say not on areas where there aren't sidewalks already, because all you're gonna do is stir people up.
So
and
do you
get-
think that maybe they'd get upset enough to want the bump outs taken out too? That's what I'm wondering, the psychology of it. If we say, well, you know, we're trying to do this thing, and it's like, well, no effing way, I want a sidewalk, and those bump outs or whatever you call them, those are a bad idea too. You think that's,
Well, but most of them, when we put the bump outs in, that's the wish of the neighborhood. They say, yes, we want them, or no, we don't want them.
But I think we might be surprised on what neighbors may think. Having done the Active Streets project in Orchard Hills last year, we ran a survey afterwards, and people really loved having a safe place to walk. And I know it's not a sidewalk, it's the street that's closed down, but they seemed very receptive to it. So.
I mean, we're gonna listen to our neighbors, our neighborhoods, our residents.
Yep,
And
exactly.
if it inspires them to get engaged, because they don't want a sidewalk, I guess, at least, since right now we're talking about the past. You know, I'm referring to an alderman who, you know, was here in the past, you know, and
That's
I.
one that's here right now.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just trying to be forward-looking on this, and I guess I'd rather that we consider making them the default, make it the standard, and then if
And
a
then let
neighbor,
them speak
because there
up.
might be some, I think we might be surprised. I think, you know, and if we let people know that we're considering, you know, as
I
our,
think that should be part of the planning process then, prior to a public hearing, prior to engineering
Yes.
designing it, this outreach.
Be an
If
option.
if
yeah.
it's an area, you say, hey, we'd like to put sidewalks in, what are your thoughts? And when the neighbors say no, then you know, and you don't design it with sidewalks.
Right,
right.
agreed.
You know, that's fine. I have no problem with doing that because, I mean, it's the fifth and the third districts that are the big areas without sidewalks.
And
I've got a couple areas in
Yeah.
mind, but most have
Yeah,
sidewalks.
I don't want to waste engineering's time
I mean, to
designing
me, it's a
sidewalks that
rock
are
the
Exactly.
boat, and then
Right.
it creates
That's
some,
why the public engagement part.
some problem.
Put it out there and then
I mean,
let them
it's a lot
get
of waste of
engaged and
time
give the
of-
feedback and then
Yeah.
move forward from there.
Yeah. You know,
It's a lot of
before-
waste of
before
time, Mr.
engineering-
Chair.
You have 5-year plans. I mean,
Right.
capital improvements, looking at the stuff years ahead of time. They can say, hey, Tony, go out in this neighborhood. We're going to be doing this street, and this street in the next 5 years, because they always take generally neighborhoods and they go down one after another. Go out there and say, do you people want sidewalks? We're going to be doing your streets in the next few years. Do you want sidewalks or not?
And if
you
we
want
do it
bump
as
outs?
part of the road construction or
Yeah.
reconstruction.
Oh, yeah.
There's no additional cost for the sidewalks when they go
Right.
in.
It is,
It does
it's
not
gonna
change
cost
the
money.
assessment.
Right,
So they'd be getting their, we call it
You're
free.
saying do it free.
Yeah, well, it goes on the tax bill. It doesn't, yeah, it would be just,
I mean, it's not an assessment to the property owner then.
no, yeah, I would just build it into the
Because there
regular
is
project.
now.
So, oh, is that what the problem is?
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah, because if we do it with road construction, as we rebuild or, I mean, I don't know if a resurface or whatever, because now we're assessing for resurfacing too. But if it wouldn't be, would that help, do you think? If it was not an expense, obviously 10, 30 years from now, the repair may be, but if we can put the sidewalks in without a direct cost to those improved homeowners,
That's something to consider.
It's something to consider. My take though, Marty, is just that folks would be upset about sidewalks in general, and even if you try to
Yeah, they don't want to plow.
explain that piece, that no, it's not costing you anymore, it doesn't matter,
Right.
it's still costing me $5,000 over 10 years.
Mr. Chair, once it's done. You know, the fact stands really, I mean, let's be realistic. Once you start talking about putting sidewalk for free, when many people already have been paid, they've been get assessed for, you know, there's gonna be some turmoil out there. To me, I don't like, at this point, really, it's fine the way it is with the sidewalk, let's not rock the boat. I mean, you got over 100 feet of frontage. Many people, like
I don't.
in my street, even on the Orchard Hill. I mean, if the city's going to put it in, look how much money it's going to cost. You're talking about $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for the sidewalk slab to be installed in 100 feet. That's what it's going to cost.
I don't know what it costs.
Well, I mean, that's about around.
You're probably right. I mean, I have no
Per
way to-
slab, I think it's over 200 some
It's not
dollars,
cheap.
$250 or
It's not cheap.
$300 per slab.
But
So
if,
let's not be realistic.
but if people want it.
Well,
I
if
mean,
people
I have
want
no
it,
problem
well,
with-
but
yeah, give it to them. I mean, I don't have any problem with that.
agreed.
So, and one thing I'll also add, which I've heard just as we round out this discussion, is I've heard folks that are anti-sidewalk say that people should be in the street, because if you're walking in the street, then that slows cars down.
Yeah, once they hit you, they slow down quite a bit.
Be the bumper.
And there are no streetlights.
They run over your dog, it slows them down
That's
quite
not
a
a
bit.
defendable statement. I'm sorry, that's not defendable.
Yes.
That makes no sense.
No, not at
The
all.
only, the only other thing is that having no sidewalks actually seems to be a greener policy in the sense that it's.
Stormwater runoff.
It does
No
for water.
stormwater runoff,
Salt.
And things like that. And
I
if you're
agree.
No.
You're using the street for pedestrian, maybe the idea is to use part of the street as a pedestrian trail
But,
and mark it.
but to your point earlier, when
Right.
we were talking about the housing study,
Right.
many young people today are not moving to the suburbs
No.
because they want sidewalks.
They want sidewalks.
They want to live where
They wanna walk to
there's
the coffee shop.
activity. I want to go to the restaurant, I want to walk here. They want a walkable neighborhood.
I agree.
And I know people that, were looking for homes that did not look out in Franklin and places like that because there's no sidewalks.
Yep.
All right.
They want to be able to go someplace. My brother lives out in Franklin, and he's kind of in a wheelchair now, and
He's trapped.
he's trapped.
Yes.
There's no place to go. He can go up and down his court in his little wheelchair, but he can't go get something to eat. He can't, there's no good restaurants around there. There's no fast food places. There's nothing. They have no walkable neighborhood. So it's fine if you're young and you want to drive to work every day and that type of thing, but when you get a little older, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Well, and even young, we bought our house based on the fact of what we could walk to. Okay,
Younger-
we
younger
have 3
people, yeah.
bars, a pharmacy,
Yep.
a restaurant, a
people
pizza
today are
place,
different.
chicken.
Yeah.
All
It's a
right, we're in.
different demographic.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, as a young person who rents and has a dog, like having sidewalks and walkability is everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I know you live in an apartment, and the big thing that everybody wants now is a dog walk in their apartment, Build an apartment complex, you better have a place to walk the dogs, and you better be pet friendly. I mean, you're not gonna rent apartments, that's simple as that.
All right, so I think we're all in agreement. We like it.
Yep, proceed.
Thanks.
Anything else to come before the committee?
Nope.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.
What was your show?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Eye opener.
Yeah?